382 million years ago, the Devonian Ocean was claustrophobic, an environment locked in a slow, heavy evolutionary arms race. Marine prey survived by evolving into biological fortresses. They covered themselves in thick dermal bone and heavy calcium carbonate shells to repel attacks. This created a defensive stalemate. The standard vertebrate teeth of the era simply shattered against these hardened biological plates. Traditional hunting, as we understand it, was entirely ineffective. Bypassing these impenetrable defenses required an entirely new kind of biological siege weapon. That weapon was Dunkleosteus terrelli, the predator that broke the Devonian defensive stalemate. This predator carried 4 tons of biological weight, with the front half of its body encased in a thick suit of dermal armor. This knuckle-plated shield, a heavy, interlocking shell of bone, covered its entire head and thorax. Instead of true teeth, Dunkleosteus possessed massive exposed bone plates extending from the jaw itself. These plates sheared against each other every time the mouth closed, creating a pair of permanently self-sharpening guillotine blades. This combination of impenetrable armor and bone-shearing blades established Dunkleosteus as the undisputed king of a world where nearly every animal wore heavy defensive plating to survive. Most of what we know about this creature comes from just its head and shoulders. While the front half was armored in bone, the rear skeleton consisted of soft cartilage, which rotted away before it could fossilize. To fill in this missing data, 20th century scientists attempted to scale the preserved armor using the proportions of modern pelagic sharks. By mapping the Dunkleosteus head onto the sleek, elongated body of a great white, researchers created a myth, a slender, 33-foot-long Leviathan. This pop culture monster dominated museums for decades, though it obscured a much stranger reality of how this predator actually functioned. Even as the dominant predator of its time, this creature lacked true teeth entirely. Look at this fossilized skull. Instead of individual teeth, Dunkleosteus weaponized its own skeleton, extending its jawbones into thick, self-sharpening blades called naphal plates. The creature lacked the small, retaining teeth that modern suction feeders use to keep large prey from washing back out of the mouth. This adaptation served as the early prototype for the hinged jaw structure found in all modern vertebrates today. Clear anatomical through-line exists between the primitive bone shears of Dunkleosteus and our own complex jaw structure. The hinges that allow us to speak, chew, and survive today are the direct, lingering legacy of a 350-million-year-old armored tank. For decades, museum displays stretched this animal into a 30-foot serpent-like monster, but volumetric data caps a typical adult closer to 13 feet. A ton of mass was packed into its deep-bodied frame, creating a predator built for high-impact collisions. Its head and chest were covered in an interlocking craniothoracic shield, measuring up to 2 inches thick in some places. It was effectively a living, armored tank. This armor was built to withstand brutal, high-impact combat. Fossil evidence even shows deep puncture marks on the defensive plates of Dunkleosteus specimens, inflicted by the jaws of other Dunkleosteus. The shorter length reveals an animal optimized for concentrated impact rather than snake-like speed. Dunkleosteus stands as a biological sledgehammer, evolved to shatter the heaviest armor of the ancient world. By the time the Cleveland Shale was forming, Dunkleosteus had outgrown all natural predators. It was the absolute master of its environment. This dominance led to a darker ecological reality. Fossilized skull plates often feature deep bite marks and puncture wounds that perfectly matched the geometry of Dunkleosteus fangs, revealing intense cannibalism within the species. Look at this mechanical schematic of the skull. It operated on a 4-bar linkage, movable joints connecting the head, chest, and jaw. Unlike most modern animals, as the lower jaw dropped down, the upper head armor physically lifted backward and upward simultaneously. This allowed the massive, heavy jaws to snap open to their maximum gape in just 20 milliseconds, opening a massive cavity underwater that quickly displaces fluid. It created a sudden abyssal vacuum, sucking heavy, armored prey directly into the strike zone. Before a target could even twitch its tail to swim away, the ocean itself was already dragging it into the kill zone. Once the prey was inside, the jaw snapped shut, sliding the naphal plates against each other like a self-sharpening biological guillotine. The jaws clamped shut, the force was concentrated at the fang tips, generating a localized pressure of 8,000 pounds per square inch. This capability allowed it to crush the heavy calcium carbonate shells of Devonian cephalopods and pierce the thick dermal bone of rival armored fish. To put that in perspective, look at the jaws of this modern spotted hyena. Dunkleosteus matched the bone-cracking power of today's most lethal mammalian scavengers. But the true devastation happened at the front fang tip. The blade's geometry focused all that kinetic energy into a microscopic point, creating a localized pressure of 80,000 pounds per square inch. It did not chew. It sheared straight through solid bone and thick calcium carbonate shells with the clean, brutal efficiency of a hydraulic press. After swallowing the catch, its digestive system would process the soft flesh and routinely regurgitate the shattered, undigestible armor plates back onto the seafloor. Dunkleosteus engineered a biological weapon to bypass and obliterate the ultimate defenses of its era. In 2025, scientific consensus shifted. New allometric models, which account for the volume of the armor, have shortened the animal drastically, placing it at a more realistic 13 feet in length. Instead of a slender shark, we see a creature with a deep, barrel-chested profile of a tuna. Dunkleosteus was a stocky, highly robust powerhouse. Its biology describes a ram feeder, a heavyweight brawler that used its stocky mass to physically slam into prey, shearing off chunks of bone and flesh. Which leaves a glaring paradox. If it possessed such high-performance anatomical design, why is it entirely extinct? 358 million years ago, the Earth underwent a sudden and drastic global climate shift known as the Hungenberg event. The primary killer during this crisis was anoxic water. The world's ocean floors experienced a severe global drop in dissolved oxygen. At the close of the Devonian period, the global ocean experienced a massive drop in oxygen levels, combined with unstable, shifting climates. This exposed the fatal flaw in the Dunkleosteus design. Maintaining a multi-ton, heavily armored body demands immense caloric energy and a massive, continuous supply of oxygen. The dominant hunter of the Devonian was not defeated by stronger armor or a larger predator. It was starved out by the invisible, suffocating collapse of the very water it breathed. The total extinction of the placoderms left the oceans completely void of superpredators. As you can see in the profile of this modern great white shark, this ecological vacuum allowed smaller, sleeker, highly oxygen-efficient survivors to thrive and inherit the oceans. The living tank was gone, but its greatest evolutionary gamble, the articulated, hinged jaw, survived. The genetic blueprint for that bite was passed down through surviving lineages, refined over 350 million years of constant evolution. The mechanical foundation laid by Dunkleosteus eventually became the baseline architecture for the modern jaw. Although the placoderms died out, they are recognized as the sister group to all living jawed vertebrates. These Devonian brawlers pioneered and perfected the fundamental mechanics of the jaw, the hinged mouth that allows an animal to catch and process food.